Captain Junho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, his hands gripping the command console so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. The tactical display showed what he had feared for the past 20 minutes. 17 red signatures were moving into position around the civilian convoy. Vaxil raiders. Everyone on the bridge could see it coming. "Captain, the convoy is heading straight into the ambush zone," Lieutenant Yuna Choi said from the tactical station. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her worry. "We need to move now if we're going to intercept." Junho wanted nothing more than to give that order. His ship was ready. His crew was ready. The weapons were charged and the engines could push them into position in less than 8 minutes. But the Council had been very clear about their rules. Human ships were not authorized to engage enemy forces without direct permission from Council Command. "Send another priority alert to Council Command," Junho said, his jaw tight. "Tell them we have confirmed hostile contacts and request immediate authorization to engage." The communications officer worked quickly, sending the third urgent message in 15 minutes. The response came back almost instantly, and it was the same as before. The human forces were ordered to maintain their current position and wait. A council battle group would arrive to handle the situation. Estimated time of arrival was 4 hours. 4 hours. The convoy would be dead in 40 minutes. Junho looked at the display again. 40,000 people were on those ships. Families, children, workers returning home from the outer colonies. 8,000 of them were human, including everyone from the colony ship New Busan. He knew some of those people. The families of his own crew members were on that ship, Captain Yuna said quietly. "We could reach them. We could save them." "I know," Junho replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to move, to fight, to protect those people. But he had his orders. Orders that came with severe consequences if disobeyed. Earth was still new to the Galactic Council. They had been members for only 32 years. Breaking Council military protocol could result in sanctions, loss of trading rights, maybe even expulsion from the Council itself. Admiral Hannah. Park had explained it to all the human commanders before they deployed. "We follow their rules. We prove we can be trusted. We earn our place at the table. No matter how much it hurts, we follow the rules." The Vaxil ships opened fire. JUNHO watched helplessly as the convoy's shields flared and failed under the coordinated assault. The civilian ships had no weapons, no armor, no chance. They tried to scatter, but the Vaxil had positioned themselves perfectly. Every escape route was blocked. "Captain, they're massacring them," someone said from behind him. The tactical display showed ship after ship going dark. Each disappearing icon represented thousands of lives. The communications channels filled with screams and desperate pleas for help. Some of them were calling specifically for the Indomitable. They could see the human ship on their sensors. They knew help was close, but help never came. JUNHO stood there for 3 minutes and watched 40,000 people die. His crew stood with him, silent and horrified. Some were crying. Others just stared at the display with empty eyes. When the last ship went dark, the bridge was completely quiet, except for the soft beeping of the ship's systems. The Council battle group arrived 4 hours later, exactly as scheduled. They surveyed the debris field and filed their official report. The conclusion was simple. The attack was regrettable, but the human ship had correctly followed proper engagement protocols. No disciplinary action was recommended. JUNHO read that report in his quarters that night and put his fist through the wall 3 days later. Admiral Hannah Park sat in her office at Earth Defense Command and reviewed the casualty lists. The numbers were staggering. 40,000 dead, including 8,000 humans. The entire population of New Busan was gone. She had approved the manifest for that colony ship herself. She knew many of those families personally. Her office door opened and Ambassador Minho Lee walked in without knocking. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 days. "The Council has summoned me," he said. "They want an explanation for why our ships didn't engage to protect the convoy." Hannah looked up at him with tired eyes. "Did you tell them we were following their orders?" "I will. I have the recorded transmissions from Council Command. I have the timestamps." I have everything documented. Minho sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. It won't matter. They'll find a way to make it our fault. He was right. The council session was broadcast across all member worlds. Ambassador Minho presented the evidence clearly and calmly. He showed the urgent requests for authorization to engage. He showed the orders to maintain position and wait. He showed the timestamps that proved counsel. Command knew about the ambush and chose to follow protocol instead of saving lives. Counselor Vextar, a tall reptilian representative who had never hidden his contempt for humanity, listened to everything and then dismissed it all with a wave of his clawed hand. The protocols exist for good reason, he said. Military operations cannot be conducted in chaos. Every species must follow the chain of command. The loss of life is regrettable, but the alternative would be worse. Imagine if every ship simply acted on its own judgment. The result would be disaster. Other council members nodded in agreement. Some expressed sympathy for the victims, but none suggested that the protocols should be changed. The matter was closed. Humanity would continue to serve as auxiliary forces under Council operational command, following Council rules. Waiting for Council permission to defend Council citizens, Ambassador Minho returned to Earth 3 days later. The planet was in turmoil. Every major city had protests in the streets. People were angry. People were demanding action. The government was under enormous pressure to do something, anything. To prevent another massacre, Captain Junho brought the Indomitable back to Earth orbit. He submitted his official report and then requested immediate leave. Admiral Hanna approved it without question. The man had watched 8,000 of his own people die while following orders. He deserved time to process that, but there would be no time to process. The world was changing too quickly. Admiral Hanna stood in her office and watched news feeds from around the planet. Tokyo, New York, Lagos, Mumbai, snow. Palo, every major city was filled with angry crowds, demanding that Earth take action. The government was holding emergency sessions. Military commanders were being called to testify. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What would Earth do? Her communication terminal beeped with an incoming priority message. It was from the president's office. Just 3 words appeared on the screen. No more rules. Admiral Hannah Park read those words 3 times. Then she stood up, straightened her uniform, and walked out of her office. She had work to do. The gloves were about to come off, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity looked like when it stopped being polite. President Doyon Kong walked to the podium in the United Earth Assembly Chamber. Every seat was filled. Representatives from every nation, every colony, every human settlement in the solar system had gathered for this moment. The chamber was silent as he placed his hands on the podium and looked out at the assembled leaders of humanity. 32 years ago, we joined the Galactic Council with hope in our hearts, he began. His voice was calm but carried the weight of barely controlled rage. We believed in cooperation. We believed in following the rules. We believed that if we proved ourselves worthy, we would earn respect and protection. He paused and looked down at his notes, but he did not read from them. Instead, he looked back up at the assembly with eyes that had not slept in days. 3 days ago, 40,000 innocent people died while our ships watched. They died because we followed the rules. They died because we waited for permission. They died because we trusted the Council to protect them. His voice grew harder with each sentence. 8,000 of those people were ours. Our families, our friends, our children. The chamber remained silent, but the anger in the air was thick enough to touch. I have spoken with the Council. They have made their position clear. The protocols will not change. We will continue to serve as auxiliary forces under their command. We will continue to wait for permission to defend our own people. President Kong's hands gripped the podium tightly. They are wrong. We are done waiting. We are done asking for permission. We are done watching our people die because of someone else's rules. He straightened up, and his voice became formal and clear. Effective immediately, all human military forces are withdrawn from Council operational command. We will maintain our Council membership, we will honor our treaties, but our ships answer to Earth and Earth alone. We joined the Council in good faith. We followed their rules. We died by their rules. No more. The assembly erupted in approval. Every representative stood and applauded. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, Admiral Hannah Park activated Protocol Fenrir. The orders went out to every human ship, every human station, every human colony. Human forces would no longer wait for Council permission to defend themselves or others. Rules of engagement were now set by Earth Defense Command, not by the Galactic Council, in a secure facility deep beneath Geneva. Dr. Ji Wuhan received clearance to open the doors to Research Division 7, the division that officially did not exist. The division that had been working in secret for the past 30 years on weapons and technologies that the Council had specifically banned as excessive and uncivilized. Dr. Ji Wu walked through the facility with Admiral Hannah and President Kang, showing them what humanity had built in the shadows. Kinetic kill weapons that could punch through any known shield. Tactical artificial intelligence systems that could coordinate fleet movements faster than any organic mind. Neural disruptors that could disable entire crews without destroying ships. Quantum entangled communication systems that the Council could not intercept or jam. The Council called these weapons barbaric. Dr. Giwu explained as they walked past rows of devices that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. They said civilized species did not fight this way. They said we should be ashamed for even researching them. Can they win us this war? Admiral Hannah asked. Dr. Giwu smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Admiral, these weapons will end this war. At the same time, Commander Hucknam received orders to bring the Ghost Fleet home from the outer dark. For 30 years, humanity had been building ships in secret shipyards beyond Neptune, far from Council observers and their monitoring systems. 30 stealth-capable warships that used technologies the Council had declared theoretically impossible. Ships that could move through space without being detected. Ships that could appear and disappear like phantoms. The Ghost Fleet began its journey home. It would take them 2 weeks to reach Earth. The Vaxel Dominion had 2 weeks to enjoy their victory over the convoy. After that, they would learn what hunting in darkness truly meant. Commodore Junho Kim, promoted for his restraint during the massacre, was given command of the Ghost Fleet. He accepted the promotion in Admiral Hannah's office. Still wearing the uniform he had worn while watching 8,000 humans die? I won't ask you to follow rules that kill our people, Admiral Hannah told him. I won't ask you to wait for permission to fight. From now on, you fight when you need to fight. You protect who you need to protect. The only rule is this: bring our people home alive. Yes, Admiral. That's a rule I can follow. The Vaxel Dominion made their next move 12 days later. They had been emboldened by the convoy massacre and saw humanity as weak prey that followed rules even while dying. They launched an attack on New Jeju, a human agricultural colony with a population of 50,000. The Vaxel sent a battle group of 23 ships. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong, Commander. Huck's Ghost Fleet dropped out of stealth space directly in the middle of the Vaxel formation. The enemy had no warning. Their sensors detected nothing until human ships were already firing. The battle lasted 17 minutes. 23 Vaxel ships were destroyed. 0 Vaxel ships escaped. 0 human ships took damage. The Ghost Fleet disappeared back into stealth space before any Council observers could arrive. The Galactic Council demanded an immediate explanation. Ambassador Minho Lee, now representing an Earth that was done apologizing, stood before the Council and gave them a simple answer. We defended our colony. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Counselor Vexstar rose from his seat, his scales darkening with anger. You've deployed unauthorized military assets. You used banned weapons. You acted without Council approval. We defended our people, Minho repeated calmly, something the Council failed to do at the convoy. We will continue to defend our people. With or without Council approval, there will be sanctions, Vexter hissed. There will be consequences for this violation of Council law. President Kong's response was broadcast publicly to every Council world. His message was short and direct. Sanction us, if you wish. We'll win this war without you." The council was stunned into silence. No member species had ever openly defied them like this. The precedent was dangerous. If humanity could ignore council authority, what would stop other species from doing the same? But the council's response died before it could take shape. Because specialist Bora Shin, working from Earth's Signals Intelligence Center, had intercepted something interesting. Vaxil military communications were in chaos. Their high command was issuing emergency orders across all fronts. They were repositioning their fleets, recalling their raiding groups, fortifying their border worlds. They were afraid. Bora listened to the intercepted communications with professional interest. The Voxil were calling humanity the ones who hunt in darkness. They were warning their ships to avoid human colonies, to retreat if human ships were detected, to never engage human forces without overwhelming numerical superiority. The Vaxil Dominion, which had been winning this war for 8 months, was now terrified of the species they had dismissed as weak. Bora sent her report to Admiral Hannah with a single note attached. "They're not afraid of the council anymore. They're afraid of us." Admiral Hannah read the report and allowed herself a cold smile. Good. Fear was a start. But fear was not justice. The people who died in the convoy massacre deserved justice, and humanity was about to deliver it. She opened a secure channel to Fleet Admiral Seok, who was preparing humanity's first major offensive operation. "Admiral, you are cleared to begin Operation Payback. Show them what happens when you massacre our people." "With pleasure, ma'am," Seok replied. The hunt was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Seok stood in the command center of the UES Retribution and watched as his fleet prepared for the largest offensive operation humanity had ever attempted. 12 targets. 12 Vaxil military installations. All of them would be hit simultaneously in less than 1 hour. Operation Payback was not subtle. It was not meant to be. This was a message written in fire and steel. This was humanity telling the Vaxil Dominion that the massacre at the convoy would not go unanswered. "All strike groups report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Waiting for your order, sir?" Seok looked at the tactical display showing the positions of human forces across 3 sectors. Ghost Fleet ships were already in position around their targets, invisible to enemy sensors. Heavy assault groups were moving into jump positions. Fighter squadrons were launching from carrier groups. Everything was ready. "Execute Operation Payback," COC ordered. "Show them what happens when they kill our children." Across 3 sectors, human forces struck simultaneously. Cloaked mine layers that had been waiting in silence activated their payloads. Vaxil patrol ships exploded before they even knew they were under attack. Cybernetic warfare specialists hacked into enemy communication networks and shut them down. Command and control systems went dark across entire fleets. The Vaxil tried to respond, but human forces were fighting in ways the Council had never allowed. They used asteroid fields as cover, places where the larger Council ships could not maneuver. They used gravitational slingshots around planets to gain impossible speeds. They attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously, coordinated by AI systems that could process tactical data faster than any organic brain. At Target 7, Lieutenant Yunbi Quan led her fighter squadron against a Vaxil battle group that had been stationed in the Kepler Gap. Council had declared the Kepler Gap unsuitable for combat operations because the asteroid field was too dense and the gravitational eddies were too unpredictable. The Council was wrong. The Kepler Gap was perfect for combat operations if you were brave enough and skilled enough to fly there. Yunbi's fighter, designated Repair 1, was equipped with experimental systems that would have horrified the Council. Her AI co-pilot could make split-second decisions faster than she could think them. Her quantum processors could calculate flight paths through the asteroid field that no organic pilot could follow. Her weapon systems could track and engage multiple targets simultaneously. "Reaper Squadron, this is Reaper 1. Yunbi broadcast to her team. Stay tight and follow my lead. We're going to thread the needle and hit them where they can't follow." She pushed her fighter into the asteroid field at speeds that made her instruments scream warnings. Behind her, 11 other fighters followed. They wove between rocks the size of mountains, pulled tight turns around spinning debris, and emerged directly behind the Vasil battle group. The enemy never saw them coming. By the time the Vaxil detected the human fighters, it was already too late. Reaper Squadron tore through the battle group like a blade through paper. 16 Vaxil ships were destroyed in less than 8 minutes. 0 human fighters were lost. On the ground, General Taijin O led the liberation of Vaxil slave labor camps. Human intelligence had discovered that the Vaxil were holding prisoners from dozens of species, including survivors from the convoy massacre. The council had filed protests and scheduled committee meetings to discuss the situation. Humanity sent Marines. General Taijin's forces dropped from orbit in assault pods, bypassing the Vasil orbital defenses through sheer speed and stealth. They hit 3 prison camps simultaneously, overwhelming the guards before the enemy could react. The Marines wore powered armor that the council had deemed frightening to civilian populations. The Vaxil guards were indeed frightened. They surrendered or died. Inside the camps, the Marines found horrors that made some of them physically sick. Thousands of prisoners in conditions that violated every civilized standard. Torture chambers, mass graves, evidence of medical experiments. General Taijin personally recorded everything. Knowing that this evidence would be needed, among the survivors were 87 humans from the convoy. They had been taken prisoner instead of killed, kept alive for interrogation and experimentation. When they saw the human Marines coming through the camp gates, many of them wept. "You came for us," one woman said, her voice breaking. "We thought everyone had forgotten." "We never forget our own," General Taijin replied. "You're going home." The evidence from the camps was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. The images were horrifying. The council issued statements of deep concern and called for an immediate investigation. Humanity issued something more direct, a warrant for the arrest of Warlord Krathaner, the Vaxil commander who had orchestrated both the convoy massacre and the prison camps. Commodore Yunho Kim made hunting Krathaner his personal mission. Using intelligence gathered from freed prisoners and electronic intercepts from Specialist Borashin, they tracked the warlord to a hidden fortress on a moon in the Vaxil home system. The moon was heavily defended. The fortress was supposed to be impregnable. JUNHO led the assault personally. The Ghost Fleet emerged from stealth space directly over the fortress, having bypassed every defense system through routes that the Vaxil believed were impossible to navigate. Human Marines dropped from the ships in powered armor. Hitting the fortress from 6 different directions simultaneously, the battle for the fortress lasted 47 minutes. The Vaxil defenders fought hard, but they were facing human soldiers who would watch their own people die while following someone else's rules. These soldiers were done being polite. They breached the fortress walls with plasma charges, fought through corridors with ruthless efficiency, and captured Warlord Krathaner in his command chamber. The warlord was dragged from his fortress in chains. Broadcast live across every human colony. This was the creature who had ordered the massacre. This was the monster who had laughed while 40,000 people died. He would face human justice now, not council bureaucracy. The council immediately protested. Ambassador Minho received formal complaints from 17 different council representatives, all demanding that Krathaner be turned over to council custody for proper legal proceedings. Admiral Hannah Park responded personally to those demands. Her message was broadcast publicly so there could be no misunderstanding. Warlord Krathaner murdered 8,000 of our people. He tortured our survivors. He will be tried on Earth under human law by judges who understand what justice means. The council had its chance to provide justice. The council chose to follow protocols instead. "We will handle this ourselves." The Vaxil Dominion responded the only way they knew how. With violence, they assembled their largest fleet and sent it directly toward Earth. Over 500 warships, led by their most experienced commanders, all dedicated to a single purpose: destroy humanity's homeworld. The council sent urgent messages to Earth, warning them to evacuate. The fleet was too large, they said. Earth could not possibly survive. The only option was to run. President Kang read those messages and then deleted them. He sent a single message back to the council. Just 2 words. Watch us. He opened a priority channel to every human warship in the galaxy. Every ship in every sector received the same order simultaneously. Come home. We end this now. The human fleet began moving. Every warship, every carrier, every support vessel turned toward Earth. The Ghost Fleet dropped out of stealth and began the journey home. The deep space stations activated their defensive systems. The hidden shipyards beyond Neptune began moving their projects to combat readiness. JUNHO stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the order. Come home. After months of hunting in the dark, after striking at enemies across the galaxy, after showing the Vaxel what fear truly meant, it was time to finish this. Time to defend humanity's home against the largest invasion fleet in recorded history. Set course for Earth, he ordered. Maximum speed. We have a planet to defend. Behind him, the Ghost Fleet accelerated toward home. They would arrive in time. They had to arrive in time, because Earth was about to face a battle that would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. The Vaxel were coming with everything they had. They would learn that everything they had was not enough. They would learn that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, or its ships, or its tactics. Humanity's greatest strength was simple and undeniable. Humans protected their home. Captain In Hasong watched the tactical display with calm, professional focus as 847 red contacts appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Vaxel invasion fleet had arrived. It was the largest military force ever assembled to attack a single world. Council observers were broadcasting predictions that Earth had less than 5% chance of survival. The observers were wrong. All defensive stations report ready. Inha announced from her command platform Guardian. Positioned in high orbit above Earth, lunar batteries charged, Mars defense grid online. Asteroid platforms active. We're ready for them. Admiral Hannah Park stood in Earth's Defense Command, 300 kilometers below, watching the same display. Around her, hundreds of officers coordinated the most complex defensive operation in human history. Every ship, every platform, every weapon system was linked into a single network. 30 years of preparation was about to be tested. They're moving in, the tactical officer reported. The Vaxel fleet is advancing in battle formation. They're headed for Jupiter. That was expected. Jupiter was the gateway to the inner system. Control Jupiter's orbit, and you controlled the approach to Earth. The Vaxel commander, Supreme Commander Thraxival, was following standard invasion doctrine. He would establish a staging area at Jupiter, eliminate any defending forces, then advance on Earth itself. What Thraxival did not know was that humanity had spent 3 decades turning the solar system into the most heavily defended fortress in the galaxy. Rear. Admiral Sunho Park commanded the fleet waiting at Jupiter. His ships were outnumbered 8-1, but numbers were not everything. His ships had been designed specifically to fight in the Jupiter system, equipped with systems that could operate in radiation levels that would cripple most vessels. The enemy vanguard is entering engagement range, Sunho's tactical officer reported. 200 contacts. They're spreading out to envelop our position. Take us into the radiation belts, Sunho ordered. Let's see how well their shields handle Jupiter's magnetic field. The human ships dove into the gas giant's intense radiation belts. Regions of space where Jupiter's massive magnetic field created killer zones of high-energy particles. The Vakessel ships followed, confident in their superior numbers. That confidence lasted approximately 4 minutes. The radiation began degrading the Vaxel shields immediately. Their sensors started giving false readings. Their targeting systems struggled to lock onto the human ships, which were equipped with magnetic deflectors specifically designed for this environment. The human ships danced through radiation that crippled their enemies, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing back into the belts. Enemy vanguard is breaking formation, the tactical officer reported with satisfaction. They're taking heavy casualties. Sunho allowed himself a brief smile. Good. Let them know they're not in council space anymore. They're in our home. The Vasil fleet regrouped and pushed forward with overwhelming force. They had expected losses, but they had ships to spare. Supreme Commander Thraxival ordered his fleet to advance regardless of casualties. Earth must be destroyed. Humanity must be eliminated as a threat. As the Vaxil fleet pushed past Jupiter, encountered the second layer of Earth's defenses. Asteroid bases that had been hiding powered up and opened fire. Weapons platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt revealed themselves. Comet-mounted railguns that had been drifting in what appeared to be natural orbits suddenly activated, accelerating chunks of ice and rock to relativistic speeds. Contact. The Vaxil sensor operators screamed across their fleet. Weapons fire from asteroid field. Multiple sources? They're everywhere. The asteroids had been weaponized. For 30 years, human engineers had been hollowing out asteroids and installing weapon systems. Power generators and automated defense systems. The Council would have been horrified at the expense. The Council was not here to complain. Thraxival pushed forward. He had lost a third of his fleet, but Earth was close now. Mars orbit was the last major obstacle before the final approach. Once past Mars, nothing would stand between his fleet and humanity's homeworld. Mars was waiting. The red planet had been transformed into a military fortress over the past 3 decades. Hidden silos opened across the surface, launching swarms of autonomous interceptors. Orbital platforms activated particle beams and nuclear-pumped lasers. The defense satellites that the Council believed were simple communication arrays revealed their true purpose as weapons platforms. The battle at Mars was brutal. The Vaxil fleet hammered the planet's defenses with everything they had. Human forces fought back with weapons that made Council observers gasp in shock. The fighting continued for 6 hours. When it was over, the Vaxil fleet had been reduced to less than half its original strength, but they had broken through. The path to Earth was open. Supreme Commander Thraxival, commanding from his flagship Extinction's Maw, looked at the tactical display with grim satisfaction. He had lost 400 ships, but victory was close. Earth had no more defenses. The homeworld was unprotected. He activated his ship's primary weapon, the planet killer that had destroyed 7 worlds during the Vaxil expansion. One shot would be enough to crack Earth's crust and boil its oceans. Target Earth, Thraxival ordered. Prepare to fire planet killer. Captain Inha Song watched the massive dreadnought charge its weapon. She had been waiting for this moment. Every defense station commander in Earth orbit had been waiting for this moment. Chief Mingi-In has said calmly, "Activate the shield." Chief Engineer Minji Bei sat in a control center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by the largest fusion generators ever built. Her hand moved to the activation switch. Activating planetary shield. All generators to maximum output around the planet, in facilities hidden beneath the oceans and buried in the deepest parts of the continental crust. Massive generators came online. They tapped into Earth's own magnetic field and amplified it 1,000 times over. The planet was wrapped in a shield of electromagnetic force strong enough to deflect plasma, dissipate energy beams, and redirect particle weapons. The Extinction's Maw fired. The planet killer beam was powerful enough to crack a world. It struck Earth's shield and dispersed harmlessly into space. The energy bleeding off across the electromagnetic field like water flowing around a rock. The beam that should have destroyed humanity's home instead created a beautiful aurora that lit up the night sky from pole to pole. Shield holding, Minji reported. All generators operating within normal parameters. We can maintain this for days if necessary. Thraxival stared at his display in disbelief. Impossible. No species has planetary shield technology. The energy requirements are impossible. Fire again. He screamed at his weapons officer. Fire until that shield breaks. The Extinction's Maw fired twice more. The shield held. Earth remained untouched. Commodore Junho Kim chose that moment to arrive. The Ghost Fleet dropped out of stealth space directly around the Extinction's Maw, so close that the Vaxil flagship shields were useless. Human ships materialized from nowhere, surrounding the dreadnought like predators surrounding prey. This is Commodore Kim to all Ghost Fleet ships. Junho broadcast. That ship killed our people. End it. The Ghost Fleet opened fire at point-blank range. But Junho had a special plan for the flagship. His ship, along with 6 others, activated quantum tunneling systems. Technology that the Council said was impossible. Technology that allowed ships to briefly exist in a quantum superposition, state and phase through solid matter. The human ships phased through the extinctions, maws, shields, and hull. They materialized inside the dreadnought itself. Human marines poured out of the ships into the Vaxel flagship's corridors. They fought their way to the reactor core while Junho's ships provided fire support from inside the enemy vessel. The battle inside the ship was close and brutal. The Vaxel fought desperately. They were fighting enemies who had appeared from nowhere, inside their own ship. The Marines reached the reactor core and planted charges. Then they retreated to their ships. All Ghost Fleet ships phase out now, Junho ordered. The human ships phased back out of the extinction's maw just as the reactor charges detonated. The massive dreadnought tore itself apart from the inside. Its own power source turned into a bomb. Supreme Commander Thraxival died when his flagship exploded into a expanding sphere of plasma and debris. The remaining Vaxel fleet, leaderless and watching their flagship die in a way they could not comprehend, began to retreat. President Kang, watching from Earth Defense Command, gave the order that every human had been waiting to give. No survivors. No mercy, no second chances. Every ship that came here to destroy Earth dies here. Hunt them down, the human fleet pursued. Not a single Vasilla ship escaped the solar system. 6 months after the Battle of Seoul, Ambassador Kyung Lee stood before the Galactic Council and presented Earth's terms for the new treaty. The war was over. The Vaxil Dominion had ceased to exist as a military power. Their homeworld was under human occupation. Their military infrastructure had been systematically dismantled. Their leadership was facing trial for war crimes on dozens of liberated worlds. The galaxy had changed, and the Council was struggling to accept it. Earth proposes the following amendments to our Council membership, Kyun said calmly, reading from the document that had been approved by President Kang and the United Earth Assembly. First, human military forces will operate under human command at all times. We will coordinate with Council forces, but we will not serve under Council operational authority. Councillor Vexstar, who had somehow survived the political fallout from the war, rose to object. That is unprecedented. Every Council member submits their forces to unified command. Military independence would undermine the entire structure of Council defense. The structure of Council defense let 40,000 people die while following protocols. Kyung replied without emotion. We're not interested in that structure anymore, he continued reading. Second, Earth will maintain its own sphere of influence. Species who request human protection will receive it without Council, interference, or approval. We will not abandon our allies to bureaucracy. The Council chamber erupted in arguments. Some members were outraged at the audacity. Others were quietly calculating what this meant for their own positions. 3 Council members had already withdrawn from the Council to seek bilateral defense treaties with Earth. The exodus had begun. High Councillor Zaranis, who had replaced the previous leadership after their failures during the war, raised her hand for silence. She was from a species known for pragmatism rather than pride. She understood that the galaxy had changed whether the Council accepted it or not. Ambassador Kyung, she said carefully, what you are proposing would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the Council. Other species will demand the same rights. The Council's authority would be severely diminished. Yes, Kyung agreed. It would. Perhaps that's necessary. Perhaps species should have the right to defend themselves without asking permission. Perhaps that would prevent the next massacre. The Council fell silent. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. The Council had failed. Everyone knew it. The only question was whether they would admit it. Before the Council could respond, Admiral Wujincho provided a demonstration of humanity's new position in galactic affairs. His fleet conducted live fire exercises just outside Council space. The exercises were scheduled and announced properly. They followed all the appropriate protocols for military maneuvers. The exercises also happened to destroy 3 abandoned listening posts that the Council had secretly maintained in human territory. The posts had been monitoring human communications and ship movements. The Council believed they were undetectable. They were wrong. Admiral Wu Jin sent a polite apology for the accidental destruction of the posts. He explained that human targeting systems had mistaken them for debris. He promised to be more careful in the future. Everyone understood the real message. We know you were spying on us. We can find all your hidden assets. We can destroy them whenever we want. The Council got the message. The treaty negotiations suddenly became much more cooperative. Counselor. Vexstar made one final attempt to organize opposition to Earth's demands. He called a secret meeting of species who shared his concern about human militarism. He argued that humanity was becoming too powerful, too aggressive, too willing to ignore the rules. The meeting lasted 15 minutes. It ended when a representative from a species that had suffered under Vaxil occupation stood up and reminded everyone of something important. Where were you when the Vaxil invaded our worlds? You sent observers and filed reports and scheduled meetings. The humans sent warships and soldiers. They bled to free us. They didn't ask for payment or territorial concessions. They asked if we needed help, and then they helped. So forgive me if I don't share your concerns about human militarism. I've seen what happens when there's not enough militarism to stop monsters. The opposition to Earth's treaty collapsed. Vexstar was quietly removed from his position and reassigned to administrative duties on a distant station. The message was clear. The old guard had failed, and the galaxy was moving on. The treaty was signed 3 weeks later. Earth became the first species to maintain military independence while remaining a council member. Within 6 months, 17 other species requested similar arrangements. The Council's unified military command, which had existed for thousands of years, was fundamentally restructured. The galaxy was learning a new lesson. Strength and cooperation were not opposites. Species could be strong individually and still work together. They didn't need to surrender their sovereignty to gain protection. Admiral Junho Kim, now commanding the entire defensive pact that was forming around Earth, oversaw the integration of allied species into the Joint Defense Network. Human doctrine and tactics were shared freely. Training programs were established. Former enemies like the Vaxil, survivors who had opposed their governments, Grecian were offered a chance to join the rebuilding efforts. Lieutenant Yoon B. Kwan found herself training pilots from a dozen different species. She taught them the tactics that had won the war. She taught them to think independently, to trust their instincts, to question orders that didn't make sense. She taught them that following rules was important, but protecting innocent lives was more important. General Tai Jino established a peacekeeping force that actually kept the peace. Unlike the Council's peacekeepers who observed conflicts and filed reports, Taijin's forces intervened to stop violence. They separated combatants. They protected refugees. They arrested war criminals. They did what the name implied. They kept peace through action. Dr. Ji Woo, Han's research team began sharing technology with allied species. Not the most dangerous weapons, but the innovations that improved life and defense. Better shields. More efficient engines. Medical technology that saved lives. The Council had hoarded knowledge. Humanity shared it. Historian Yemen. SCO published his account of the war under the title From Politeness to Power. Humanity's 32 years of restraint and 8 months of reckoning. The book became required reading at the Council's military academy. Future officers learned from humanity's example. Rules serve people. People don't serve rules. President Doyon Kong stood with Fleet Admiral Sia Q at the memorial for the convoy massacre. The memorial was built in orbit around Earth, visible from the surface. It was a ring of light with 8,000 names inscribed on its inner surface. Every name of every human who died that day. Do you think we did the right thing? Asiok asked quietly as they looked at the names. I don't know, Kang admitted. We broke rules. We defied the Council. We started a fundamental shift in galactic politics. History will judge whether we did the right thing. But these people died because we followed rules that got them killed, Kong continued. So, we changed the rules. We made sure it couldn't happen again. We made sure humanity would never be helpless again. They stood in silence for a moment, reading the names. Young and old. Military and civilian. Families who had been traveling together, now memorialized together. Admiral Hannah told me something before she retired, Seok said. She said the hardest part of command isn't making decisions in battle. It's living with the decisions you made before the battle, the rules you followed, the orders you gave, Kong nodded. She was right. Junho followed orders at that convoy. He did exactly what we told him to do. And 8,000 people died. That's on us. That's on the system that put him in that position. We changed the system, Seok said. We did, Kong agreed. We'll never follow rules that ask us to watch our people die. We'll never wait for permission to defend the innocent. We'll never be polite while people are being massacred. Above them, human patrol ships moved across the sky. Not auxiliary forces. Not second-class members of someone else's military. These were human ships, commanded by humans, protecting humanity and anyone else who asked for protection. The memorial's inscription glowed in the darkness of space, visible to everyone who looked up from Earth's surface. The words were simple and clear. They died following the rules. We survived by breaking them. We honor their memory by never being helpless again. 6 months after that, Ambassador Kuhn sent his annual report to the United Earth Assembly. The report detailed the transformation of galactic politics. The old council structure was fading. New alliances were forming. Species that had been voiceless were finding their voices. Military forces that had been bureaucratic were becoming effective. The final paragraph of his report was short.
Ow.
Earth has fundamentally changed the galaxy's power structure. We have proven that strength and morality are not opposites. We have shown that protecting the innocent is more important than following protocols. The Council may never forgive us for this. But thousands of living people, people who would have died under the old system, don't care about the Council's forgiveness.